5, 6,
One regular
7,
member,
8,
one
9.
Police officers
We're not
over there,
voting.
they said they worked at a couple of years ago.
I moved that regular.
Friday night was light relative to what I remember in the past.
Last week I had to
What a beautiful weekend, though, huh?
Oh, yeah, it's Friday night.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We will call tonight's meeting of the Wethersfield Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Our first item is roll call and seating of alternates. Our clerk is not here, but I'll just quickly go through. Joseph Hammer here, Peter Lambruni.
Here.
Neho Mickey is absent. Chris Brecklin.
Here.
Tom Dean.
Here.
David Drake.
Here.
Dave Edwards.
Here.
Tracy Gianfrido.
Here.
Rich Roberts.
Here.
Joe Ercolani.
Here.
Anna Lurie is absent, and Paul Thompson.
Here.
Okay, so I think we have a total of 10, if I counted correctly, including 2 alternates, 7 regular members and 2 alternates. Old business, none. New business, there is a subdivision application, and my understanding from the town planner, Dave Elder, is that is on there essentially for our official receipt. It's still in the process of review by town staff and not ready to proceed this evening. Is that correct?
That is correct, and the applicant came in today, and they also asked, there's, I guess, Diwali or the New Year starts tonight, so they also asked not to, if they could not be here, and I said there was no action pending anyway, we're still reviewing, so
Okay.
they are aware of that.
Okay, that's fine. And then in terms of item 4, other business, the 2026 proposed commission meeting schedule, which everyone should have a copy of, and that basically is maintaining the first and third Tuesday schedule that we've historically used. And I think the only exceptions are there are 2 meetings on Wednesdays because of a Monday holiday, January 21st and February 18th. I think that was MLK Day, and then the other one is one of the President's Days. And then the first meetings in July, we are not having the first Tuesday as a meeting in either July or August, which is consistent with what we did this year. Is that correct?
That is, it occurred to me, on the 2 Wednesdays of the meetings that we've had this year that I've been a part of, we almost didn't have a quorum, so maybe as we get closer to those, if it looks like that might be the case, we just try to identify those conflicts early.
That would be a great idea, and I know that even earlier than the typical, when you get the email the day before, maybe when we're at the meeting prior, we could bring it up with people to get a sense of whether we can get enough here. Okay?
Yeah.
That sounds good. So unless anyone has any questions on this, I think we just need a motion to approve the 2026 Planning and Zoning Commission proposed meeting schedule.
So moved.
By Peter, second. By Dave Drake.
Second, yeah.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and in terms of the
Birthday's on the
alternates, I guess we just need to determine between Paul and Joe. I think, Paul, you maybe have sat out more recently than Joe, if I recall.
believe so.
Okay, so Paul, why don't you participate on that motion, okay? We'll log you in on that one. All right. Next, Plan of Conservation and Development update. I will turn it over to Dave.
All right, thank you, everyone. Just bear with me. We're going to, we have some presentations, and Rory Fitzgerald is here joining us at the dais tonight. If you haven't noticed, it seems like we have a new commissioner, but because we're going to be sharing this presentation, we'll just be here for up here to see it. It's on the agenda tonight as a presentation. I know that some of you are more familiar with this plan. Oh, not on the mic. So some of you are more familiar with this plan than others. Some of you are also members of the advisory committee that shepherded through the process to get it to where it is. And so what we would like to do, and Rory can correct me if I'm wrong, is we have about a 35-page presentation, which we can go through pretty quickly, but we also don't need to spend a lot of time on a lot of the things that you've already seen. You've already seen, I don't want to take too much of it, but you've already seen all of the goals and the strategies, which are really the critical component of the plan. You've seen those in March. There have been no changes to those since March. And part of the reason that the Plan of Conservation and Development has been, I'll say, intentionally delayed is because we wanted it to coincide with the other required affordable housing plan. And those we wanted to run on the same track for a couple of reasons, just for the planning process itself, but also there's a requirement that they both now have to be updated on the same 5-year cycle, so that we're hoping by running these concurrently this year, 5 years from now when we do it again, we can incorporate the housing plan as a chapter in the Plan of Conservation and Development. And then the other reason that we've sort of been working behind the scenes is the prior map was done by a consulting company that they weren't able to find the data that was used to create a lot of the maps. So Fitzgerald and Halliday, we sort of had to go back and start from scratch and create the maps, and that took a little bit of time. So, but that's all done. And I'll just say there are no significant changes on either the land use mapping that was done in the 2013 plan, and there's also no significant changes in terms of policy development or growth areas in the town that I would say are notable. But we are going to run through a bit of the process, the goals, and we can go pretty quick. And if we need to go back to something, we will. But does that sound like a good plan? We're going to kind of move quickly through it and then make a note of what you want to see in more detail. Okay, with that, I'm going to introduce
Great.
Rory Fitzgerald. Thank you.
Rory Jacobson, Dave. You
Oh, I'm
forgot
sorry.
I got married.
Oh, I did.
5 years ago now.
Okay.
So hi, I'm Rory Jacobson. I know many of you. We're on the advisory committee, so nice to see you guys again. I'm from FHI Studio. We were acquired about a year ago by IMEG Consulting, so we're actually FHI Studio, now IMEG. And we worked in tangent with RKG. They helped us, and we helped them with the affordable housing component of this project. So tonight for our agenda, as I said, we're going to run through the project scope, talk about what we did for engagement. We did quite a bit. I know many members have already seen, members of the advisory committee were involved throughout the process, so they've seen and know about much of what we did. We'll review the vision statement and goals of the plan. We'll talk about the plan layout and then next steps for adoption. I believe at the end of March, when we last spoke to you, we were in the various stages of compiling the plan, so it wasn't a full, complete document. We're at the point now where I know Dave shared the link, and I apologize that it wasn't working for some of you, but we do have the full plan now in its full entirety, so excited for that. So that's our agenda. That's what we're going to do. Just an overview of what the POCD is. I know this is Planning and Zoning Commission, so you guys are well familiar with this. But in Wethersfield, the last Plan of Conservation Development was completed back in 2013. These are required by state statute to be updated once every 10 years. And this is a document, it's a guiding document that helps the town make decisions on policies. It's referenced by boards and commissions. It documents the community in a point in time, identifies trends, and as I said, it is required for things like grants and funding. So Wethersfield was due, and we're happy to be in that process. And I will say that for those of you on the advisory committee, you may have noticed we updated our logo to Vision 2035. We thought, we were a little dated with the Vision 2034, so we did go ahead and change that. So with that, our scope, we did quite a bit of engagement. I mentioned our advisory committee. We had a great advisory committee that was with us through the beginning of the process, and pretty much right up through, I'd say, probably end of March, April of this year. But they met on a monthly basis, and many of you on this commission are part of that committee. And some communities, it's just the Planning and Zoning Commission that's in charge of doing the POCD, but you are able to, create a designated committee, and that's what we decided to do here. I know Wethersfield, and we know that Wethersfield is usually very busy, and we found it more effective to create a committee that has representatives from planning and zoning, but also, a wider net of different backgrounds that can be, devoted to the POCD. So the meetings are devoted just to discussions about the POCD. So that's what we did here. had monthly project coordination calls with the town, did quite a bit of community engagement, social media. We had a website, there was news coverage. We launched an online survey, stakeholder meetings, focus group meetings, pop-ups where we got out into the community, conducted a workshop. We presented the draft goals and strategies to you all back in March. And we will be doing the public hearing for adoption. Our task 3 was the existing conditions assessment, so that's when we dig into the data, and then task 4 was the development of the POCD document. So just, to discuss the engagement that we did pop-up events. So these were where we got out to the community and talked to people, what do you want to see in 10 years? What would you like Wethersfield to be like? What are the issues? What are your desires? What's your vision for the future? Things like that. It was really fun, interactive. So we got out to Porch Fest and Corn Fest in 2024. So these were events that the advisory committee recommended, and they were really great to attend and get out and talk to the community and advertise the plan. Advertisement, we had notices in the Great Elm, the Shopkeepers Association, Chamber of Commerce. There were flyers in the Town Hall Library and the Community Center. There was a 2-week ad in the Rare Reminder, and it was also in Wethersfield Life. So these were all, news sources that the committee recommended, and we made sure to get the word out that way. We launched an online survey. It had over almost 900 responses. So it was we got really great feedback from the community that way. Asking questions like, why do you live here? What do you want to see in the future? And really great feedback. People took a lot of time to go in there and answer the questions. So this helped, the review of existing conditions, plans, other, relevant plans and studies influences the plan, but, just as much as the engagement, what we hear from the community. So this was a really big piece of it. We did conduct a public workshop. 30 people attended. Again, it was very well advertised. The workshop consisted of a presentation and then breakout sessions covering the various plan topics. Did focus group meetings organized thematically, so we did 6 of those back in November. We conducted stakeholder interviews with various department heads and different boards, CROG, the State Historic Preservation Office. And so it got us to where we are today, and we went through all of this back in March. Beyond that, we've built out the plan, added the narrative, added in our maps. Dave mentioned we had some issues with the land use mapping, but we feel like we're there now. But this is the vision statement where we landed. Wethersfield is a safe, welcoming community that honors its rich history and diverse culture. With a focus on community, inclusivity, and connection, Wethersfield provides essential services, varied housing options, and opportunities for all generations. Committed to protecting its natural and historic resources, supporting local businesses, and creating a sustainable future, the town offers exceptional access and opportunities and serves as a vibrant hub for the region. And then our goal for land use and zoning. And I don't know, do folks want to go through all this?
I think there's 9 of these slides, and I was going to say maybe we'll look at the goals, and then we can come back to them. How about that, if we think there's a need to? Does that sound good? There's going to be a lot. We'll spend a lot of time.
There's a lot of detail.
There's also available online.
And I will say, we have goals and strategies and then specific action steps for each of the chapters. So, the action steps are really what drill down, that's like the how for each of these different strategies. So if you're thinking something might be missing, chances are it's probably in the action steps.
Rory, I don't know if you did this. I remember one of the early meetings when we got together, we had a discussion about going back to 2013, looking at its goals, strategies, and actions, and then getting an assessment. Well, how well did we do? We had all these things we wanted to do in 2013. How many were accomplished to the full extent or partially? And Did you ever get a chance to do that?
We did. We took a look back and we worked with Dave and then others within the town, like Jared Greger, the town engineer, and looked back at, what was identified and went through and said, oh, this has been, we marked it if it had been completed. We looked if it was, maybe this isn't relevant anymore. Maybe this comes off. Maybe there's new things that need to be added. So we did conduct that exercise. And I can't give you off the top of my head how many were completed. But we do have within, I think it's the second chapter, a section on, past accomplishments, because I know that was something that you guys in our committee meetings had talked about. Hey, let's highlight the things the town has done in that time. And we did make sure to do that right up front.
Okay.
So here's our goal for land use and zoning: encourage balanced growth and development that supports a livable and inclusive community, strengthens economic vitality, and promotes healthy lifestyles, all while preserving Wethersfield's small-town charm and protecting its natural resources. And then various strategies for that one. And again, I'm going to go through these real quick, but we can bounce back as needed. So for housing, continue to offer diverse housing options that meet the needs of current and future residents at every stage of life, while preserving the identity of existing neighborhoods and fostering a strong sense of community. And we did work with RKG, the consultant that developed the affordable housing plan, on our housing chapter. So that's aligned with the work that they did as well. Economic development: foster a thriving economic climate by attracting and supporting businesses of all sizes and types to offer a diversity of goods and services. Encourage the flexible redevelopment and infill of existing commercial areas to expand economic opportunities and reduce the tax burden on residents. Mobility and infrastructure: expand transportation options and infrastructure to enhance mobility and accessibility for all residents. Prioritize updates to transportation, utilities, and public facilities to ensure a resilient and sustainable community that is prepared for current and future needs. Cultural and historic sources: safeguard, promote, and celebrate Wethersfield's cultural and historic resources for future generations by encouraging the stewardship of historic landmarks and properties and supporting growth of cultural assets within the community. Quality of life: provide high-quality, fiscally responsible community services and facilities that are adaptable to the changing needs of residents, supporting individuals and families at all stages of life. Open space and natural resources: conserve, protect, and enhance open space, natural resource areas, and recreational opportunities while promoting environmentally responsible and sustainable community growth. And as we went through this, we acknowledge that there's a lot of overlap between the goals and the strategies and the actions. So we did this exercise where we developed what we call a goals and strategies matrix, and we colored it based on topic area and made notes of what kind of overlapped, what kind of accomplished a variety of different things. So that's just a screenshot of this document too, that I think we have as kind of like a supplemental piece, something we could post online, we could look at as well. As kind of we don't have it incorporated into the plan, but I think it is helpful to kind of see how all of it works together.
Yeah, I think, and just to say that was important, because when we saw the long list of all of the recommended action strategies, a lot of them are mutually supportive of others or beneficial, so it was hard to identify, is this an economic development strategy, or is this a quality of life strategy, or is this a tourism? So we tried to identify those that were sort of cross-cutting, if you will, but it's not currently in the plan, but it's a good resource. We could include it as appendix or just not do anything with it, but it does show how many of them, just reinforce each other, so. Thanks.
And then for our layout, we as I said, we have packaged it up. It's very, I think, visually appealing. Lots of pictures, lots of graphics, lots of information. Has an introduction about kind of what's incorporated, what's included, the organization, plan goals laid out right in the initial chapter. I mentioned that history of Wethersfield. We discussed early on in our committee. We said, that this history section is really great. There's a lot of pictures, but it's so long and robust. Is there a way to kind of streamline that down a little bit? So we did make an effort to do that. We still incorporated some of those drawings that were included in the existing POCD. As I talked about, we also wanted to talk about the successes from the 2013 plan. So they're listed right up front, what's been done, what the town has accomplished. So that's a nice long list right there, right up front. This is just a sample chapter from mobility and infrastructure. So it kind of a variety of baseline conditions, talk about what's there, talk about the facilities, talk about recommendations, different plans and studies. We highlight the different commissions or boards or groups that help kind of champion some of these things. So I mentioned we did the focus group meetings, we did stakeholder interviews, so that's all incorporated in here. We had a variety of kind of follow-ups with different folks to get specific information for each of the chapters. So that's all pulled in a narrative-rich, user-friendly graphic format. Each chapter has its own section within the plan where the 2013 plan kind of talks about things in about a different way, almost theme-like. So this is very topic-focused, which was a discussion that we had early on with our committee is, how do we want to organize this thing? And that's where we ended up. Then at the end of each chapter, we have what's called our implementation plan. And this lays out, for each chapter, it lays out the goals, the strategies, and the actions. It identifies who, so that's the responsible party. And the table to the right shows the abbreviations for the different boards, commissions, the responsible parties. And some of them might not be, the town. It might be DOT. It might be the Capital Region Council of Governments that we identify. And then we also have a when, so that's a time, kind of a short-term, medium-term, long-term. So it lays it all out in that way. And again, this is at the end of each of the chapters, is this table. So with that, I think, Dave, you're going to cover the land use discussion, unless anybody has questions or wants to go back to anything that we...
We want to keep going, and then we'll go back? We're almost at the end, I think. So the land use chapter, the land use mapping really took a while because we did have to recreate the existing land use map. So we originally started back to that was existing in 2013, and then now knowing that it's 2025, we took it's the next one, the 20...
the future.
So what we did is we took what was recommended in 2013 as the future land use, projected out to 2020, and we made those changes, which are now reflected and shown on the existing land use. I'm going to go to 2020, or I'm sorry, I call it 2020, but the future land use, so these are the categories. The big change, I've looked at this a lot, so sorry if I probably missed some things, but I think the most significant change, and this reflects the same change that was done in 2013 and 2018, was that the residential categories in 2013 were identified as single family, 2, 3, and 4 family residential, and then multifamily residential. A decision was made at some point in the prior plan to go to a density, graduated scale of development, which was reflected in the last plan, and we have carried that through so that we no longer are saying 2, 3, and 4 families. We're using low density, moderate density, higher density, and multifamily residential. So the map on the screen now reflects the existing today, and which is largely also this representative of what was shown as the future in the last plan. That includes some of the changes that were recommended in 2013, which is now the existing conditions. And for example, in 2013, so you can see the large purple area on the north west corner of town. In 2013, that was shown as vacant with a proposed use of being industrial. And then in the 2020, the industrial category went away as its own category and got combined with the office and business park. So we are seeing, in that case, that's a good example of where this shown as future land use reflects the recommendations made in the 2013 to 2018 plan. I know that's a mouthful, but the reason I bring it up is that we have carried forward all of the all of the changes that were proposed in the last plan into this plan. The only other change that I think it's worth noting is that the last plan did have thematic maps, including a housing and business development map. And so if we look at the Silestine corridor, I just want to explain this. So while it shows as light pink, which is the business along the Silestine, that is the land use, sort of the underlying, it also reflects the underlying zone, but keep in mind that a higher density residential development, specifically multifamily, could also go in our commercial zones. So just to be aware of that, that while it shows as commercial, all of the uses that are permitted in any one of these land use categories would be permitted. And something else to keep in mind, a land use map is different than the zoning map, and that's an important distinction. And just to be clear that the land use, this is more of a policy map, where do we envision what types of land uses to go within the town? And then you carry that forward into a regulatory type document, which is our zoning map. Just want to point that out. So our land use mapping is not binding, it's not regulatory, it's our future development vision for what type of development we think can go where.
Dave, on the town center that you show up there, is that the way it was before? Because if you look at the right side, I thought it went all the way over to, it's Wells Road. Does it go all the way, does the right side from Church Street to Wells Road, is that all town center? Or is that mixed? Because it looks like some of it's town center and some of it's business. I was under the impression it was all town center. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, town center is a zone. I see. No, we do have categories. So all red.
You have a category there as town center.
Right. Sorry, you saw that. You're faster than me. Red. Yeah, no, it is the same, but the Silestine label covers a good amount of the red that carries down to Wells, but that's all red under the Silestine.
Yeah, on the west side is what the question is.
Yeah, from what I can tell, it looks consistent.
So we'll move our label then.
Oh, yeah, here it shows it, right.
Yeah,
Right.
I think the label is over it. That's the issue.
What's the green?
Oh, okay. Maybe that's what the problem is.
Yeah, I remember. What's the green cross?
And again, I also, one of the things is,
Green.
I did intentionally leave the parcels off.
That doesn't.
Because as a land use map, you generally, you don't, it's not intended to be a parcel-specific document. And so people do use it incorrectly when they see parcels on there. It's not intended to be that type of a document. And because we have parcels and because GIS now makes it easy to carry attributes through to the parcels, it is generally easier to symbolize things based on parcels, but it gives the wrong impression that these are somehow regulatory classifications that are ascribed to parcels, and that is not the case. So those are the land use maps.
Dave, I'm sorry, just a quick question.
Sure.
To the right of, or actually where 91 runs through, the green cross hatching, is that all non-buildable area?
Not necessarily. That's a good question. And so it's agriculture, right? So any related agricultural use could be permitted, but it's also a floodplain, right? So if you look at the so the pink on the northeast corner, the two pink parcels right by the river,
Yep.
right? So those are both commercial properties. They're used as commercial properties. One is the I call them Buckeye, but if
Thanks.
I noticed today they actually the tanks don't say Buckeye, they say I call it Buckeye. Do we all know what I mean by Buckeye?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, we got it.
The petroleum place.
Yeah, but there's a different, it's not the, I just noticed it today because I was showing someone that it doesn't say Buckeye, but we know what that is. So that's commercial, that's a development that is in the floodplain, in the floodway. It's also in a regulated area. And then below that is the river.
Office complex, yeah.
So the office complex, which is also located in a floodway. It's actually raised a foot above. So I guess the answer is no. Yes, it can be developed. It's not that it's undevelopable. It just it's a higher It's subject to a different standard of regulation.
Although, but did you say the zoning designation to the right of Route 3 Maple Street, a lot of that is zoned agriculture zone? Is that correct? I guess it's a different, just I guess to the extent it's zoned agriculture, I'm assuming that probably does not allow commercial development without changing the zoning designation, but it would be farming and those
Yeah,
kinds of
actually, so it's
activities.
just, I mean, we can show this. Those are the only 2 parcels east of the river that are zoned anything other than agriculture.
It's open
I'll
to
share
this.
this, I'll show this. Paul, does that help? So
Yeah.
on this side of the river, those 2 purple parcels are the only ones that don't show as agriculture.
Okay. All right, and so the rest is zoned agriculture. I guess the thought is, as I'm looking at it, is I've just been interested in how much of our land area is not developable, right? I mean, if you really kind of look at our acreage.
Yeah, I think that's actually, I saw that today.
It's like about 30%.
Although I don't think we call it not developable, I think we say undeveloped, which is different than not developable, right? They're close, but I would be reluctant to,
I guess what I was just thinking about, and this is just,
yeah.
if you look at how we raise revenue for the town, right, it's through property tax for the most part. The less acreage that's available for commercial development or any type of larger scale development sort of puts constraints around how much revenue you can generate per acre from land in the town, right? I
Yeah.
guess, sir.
Absolutely.
Back before the current map and regulations, we used to call that all the flood zone. Then it got confusing because it was a flood zone, but it was also kind of overlaid with all the FEMA flood regulations. It got to be confusing when they redid the mapping that showed flood zones in a whole bunch of other places in town. So we took what had been called the flood zone and changed it to the agriculture zone.
Okay.
And kind of tweaked some of the uses there, but it was more just nomenclature based on trying to reduce confusion with FEMA flood mapping.
Yeah, I would be confused by that too. But I mean, so, just, and there is a growing commercial enterprise down there in that area, the turf farm, for those that haven't been down in the meadows recently, they're expanding, and my understanding is one of the only changes that have happened is that some of that land that was, I guess, identified as public open space was purchased and is now private open space, and it's largely from the, I don't know if it's one turf farm or multiple turf farms, but there is a growing commercial agricultural use of that area.
Thank you. Didn't want to digress this.
One thing that I just thought was really interesting, it's hard to see on this, but if you zoom in on the actual one, right where you have Wells Road coming in on the Celestine, it actually has the crossroad from the subdivision that was recently approved at the end of Somerset that was never built. The map actually shows the road.
That might be the parcel layer.
Yeah, that's the right-of-way layer.
Because Tom was asking, or Paul was asking about the green space that's there, and that's where they're putting that subdivision, but it shows the road cutting through that was never built on this map.
Yeah.
It's just an interesting.
I'll bet if you zoom into across Church Street from Town Hall, you also see a small sliver of there's a lot of those small paper streets in town that show up on the right-of-way maps that no one really knows about, but they're around. I'll be interested to see if there's others.
Yeah. So one other thing I was wondering about is looking at the low density section in the bottom left. So it's at the southwest corner of the town, but we have that as low density, and you have the definition of areas with residential developments generally less than 2 units per acre. That's what it is now, but when we changed it, and it's probably going to generally stay that way, but we did just change to allow for more, because we changed to allow the sort of, the accessory dwelling units by right, basically. So that does kind of mean that there's the likelihood that any of those developments meeting the rest of the requirements could be not less than 2 units, but actually 2 units or more. So the less than 2 as low density definition might be a little bit incorrect for that zone or the way we're envisioning that part of town, because in order to encourage those ADUs, or if people want them, it's an option now, so.
Yeah, do you, actually, just because I don't have the computers being used, but do you also have the definition of, there it is. So that would also be true of any single-family zone
Yeah.
for the ADUs. So it would change the entire, and so going back, and again, we can change this. This is why we all meet to talk about this. But we had a similar conversation about what is the underlying land use that we are proposing and we're showing, right? And so that's why along the Silas Dean, I think, we settled on, this is our commercial zone, let's show it as commercial, but that doesn't preclude the other things that are allowed by zoning. And so I think what you bring up is another similar point, and it's a valid point, that while this is a lower density land use area designation, it doesn't preclude or prohibit the other uses like those that could go. But
So I think another way of looking at it is it's speaking to the principal residential structures, not precluding accessory, which anybody could do anywhere, but underlying zoning says you can only do not more than 2 principal structures, right? So I think, but you have a good
And we
point.
could make a note right here in the tables too about that, about specific to the ADUs.
you say we could, or
Yeah, we could.
Although
We
it's
certainly
already,
could.
I mean, it's already incorporated in our zoning regs on the recent amendments, I think, that we just did, right? To reflect the state allowance of that.
We did, and,
Yeah.
right. And so this,
I don't know.
It's
Well,
more
this-
about, this is,
Regs.
that map is saying future land use. So my point is, I guess, largely, now the future land use is not going to be less than 2 units, just very specifically to the language we have for low density. So thinking about future land use, it's not really technically less than 2 units because we allow those ADUs by right anywhere in a residential zone now.
Yeah, I feel like we could modify that definition, Dave,
yeah, no.
to certainly reflect that.
Or just drop a footnote that
Yeah.
says, see
Yeah.
also Public Act
Right.
XYZ regarding
Sure.
accessory units or something.
I don't think the actual land use will change very much to that degree, but it's just thinking about,
Because most of, I guess the
Yeah.
other thing is, do you assume probably 90% of the people are not going to develop accessory units, so it will stay
yeah.
lower, right? But, good, there is a way to flag it.
And I think it's all developed up there, right? There isn't any open
What's that?
land, is there?
Well, I think if it's developed with single-family homes, I think that's what Chris is talking about, is that it could further be developed with the ADUs, which would increase the density that we're showing for, it would increase the densities less than 2 units per acre. It would double that, essentially.
No, I understand, but it seems to me that those homes up there are pre-existing, they're pretty fancy. I doubt anybody's going to add anything to them unless there's open land and someone's, maybe he'll build a second unit while they're building the first. I don't know.
I fill my whole front yard with granny pods.
Tiny houses.
I'm open to either option. And I don't want to overthink this because I've been
Yeah.
looking at these maps too much, but so whatever the commission is most comfortable with, but I'm fine with a footnote. I just want to make sure that if we were to change that, I want to make sure that we're aware that it would change any single-family type residential
I think the
development.
footnote's got to cover all of them.
Right. I think if you're going to do anything, it seems to me a footnote is better because you don't want people to interpret it the other way, that now suddenly they can do 3 units per acre where the underlying zoning, wouldn't allow 3 standalone regular houses. So
Yeah.
maybe the footnote.
It'll be, we'll just recognize the public act that allows it by right.
And it really only has to be asterisk on the first 3 categories,
Yeah.
right? Low, medium, and higher.
Yeah, anywhere, any single family. Okay, we can do that. Anything else on the map?
One question I had in going through this, in uses that are grandfathered, I mean, there's a couple I can think of that are a problem in town. Are we kind of like locked into whatever the grandfather, does that perpetually go on? If it's inconsistent with this land use because of grandfathering, what can we do about it? Are we stuck?
No,
forever?
so-
With those, what happens to those?
Just keep in mind, this is why I always suggest taking off the parcels, is because this is completely separate from, well, I say that, this can be completely separate from zoning. So grandfathering is a zoning construct that recognizes the use or the structure existed before something changed after the fact, right? This is not. This is really a policy document that, to bring about the desired land uses, you would then have in your zoning regulations to see the change that you envision. This is sort of your forward-thinking document. So if there was pig farm, I'm just going to take a pig farm because that's one of the original reasons for zoning, right? If there was a pig farm in the middle of a high-dense residential area, that pig farm, you probably wouldn't see the desired use of that shown on a land use map, because ideally that could be an unhealthy situation in a high-density population. So the land use map would show a change from, would probably just show a higher density residential development. But from a zoning perspective, that pig farm has the right to exist for as long as it needs to within the confines of its existing use and structures. So separate from zoning. However, you know, people do make decisions based on this, and this can be used as a policy document specifically, or I would say, a good example, and others might know, is like sewer expansion, right? If this shows an area in town that we want to preserve as open space, and we get and we show it as that on this map, and then we get a large development that proposes sewers, we can use this map and say, you know, that we have looked at the town, and over the next 10 years, we want this area to remain, you know, for preservation space. So you can use that in this policy document to support that decision. But it's not going to take away any existing uses. But if there are uses that we think somewhere maybe there should be, like maybe we think there should be more agricultural uses in the meadows, we could use this and say, no, we don't think commercial development is right, and show it all as agriculture.
Hey.
I don't know if maybe that's too many words to explain the question, but it's, and I would say this is sort of true of the plans of conservation. This is my opinion. The plans of conservation development are kind of prescriptive at this point. There's a state statute that I have printed off that says these are the things that the plan of conservation and development has to include, and then there's a section of things that the plan may include, and then where I'd say the people use a lot for grants, because if there's any part of your plan that is inconsistent with the growth management principles in the state plan of conservation and development, we're supposed to identify those. And so most municipalities sort of align their plans with the state goals of the state plan of conservation and development. They align their policy goals with the regional plan of conservation and development. And they do that for wise decisions. So if they want to initiate any one of the, let's say they want to do a composting, a recycling program or composting, and there's a grant, they'd like to be able to point to their plan of conservation and development and say that our plan of conservation and development thinks that we should be sustainable. And here it is. So that's why there's a lot of, we say that we're going to do an awful lot in this plan so that we can use it as necessary as supporting to say that we've thought about this and we're.
And Dave, I don't want to cut you off, but you mentioned the state plan and the region's plan. They both, the region, about a year ago, CROG adopted their updated POCD. The state, I think it was maybe even April of this year, it was recent. So we've looked to both of those new updated documents, and I think it's right up in Chapter 1 or Chapter 3 maybe, where we talk about how this plan is consistent with both of those plans. So we do identify that right up front in the plan.
Thank you.
I certainly didn't do an exhaustive study. I mean, it's a lot of work, but in looking at the 2013, what we intended to do, what we think we did, and where we are here, I was just thinking that, at least from my look at it, it really hasn't changed that much, right? These watches, you just can't shut them off. Sorry. So I guess, am I correct in that assessment that fundamentally this is not a leap and a bound beyond the 2013? It has the same flavor, it has the same uses more or less, if anything, it's just a continuation and a brush-up of the 2013. Is that correct, or is there something I missed in looking at those two?
I've read both documents, and I think both, the 2013 was a really good plan, it's very descriptive. I think this one is as well. It carries all of that forward. The only section that I would say I think this does a deeper dive on is the mobility, sort of reflects all of the town's efforts since the 2013 plan recommended a bike ped advisory board and those things. Now those things are pretty mature, and there's a whole section on mobility that talks a lot about the non-motorized, bike trails and pedestrian improvements. I would say that is the
Okay. Yeah, there was more to that in this one, for sure, yeah.
But no, I didn't see any major shifts in policies of development.
Right, okay.
I mean, and that makes sense when you have a town that's 95% developed.
And I will say, I think both plans Paul, maybe you were going, I mean, both plans have recognized, because they do include the economic trends, like both plans recognize the importance and the need to maximize the non-residential tax-based growth along our corridors. Both plans say, that we are a largely built-out community. The majority of the town area is comprised of residential properties, and they both say that business and business retainage is essential for the town.
And I'll say too, I know our committee in many of our discussions talked about how the town is largely built out, how most of the tax dollars are from residential. So they all agreed, hey, this is a largely residential community. What can we do in this plan to improve the quality of life for people that live here? And we included a quality of life chapter for that specific reason, that highlighted things, had recommendations about just that, the quality of life improvements that we could do. And I know that we had talked early on about the layout and the formatting. The 2013 plan was laid out in a different, it talked about guiding, preserving, and it had different themes, and we all kind of agreed it was a little bit difficult sometimes to find things. So we early on said, hey, let's do it topically. So if you want to if you want information about housing, you go to the housing chapter. If you want information on economic development, there's a chapter for that. And so that's kind of how we organized.
Chris,
My only other question is maybe a historical question. I don't know if any of the other commissioners also maybe have context for this. Is we only have those like really small sections of the town center zone, and thinking about that and sort of what there's the reference on page or 2.3 from the from this draft that also talks about like the Silestein master plan and everything from 2006. And I was just curious, why is there, is it just to preserve the potential for, is it more restrictive uses and we're trying to preserve that corridor for different business types by not making it town center zone? And when we think about like walkability and like what we want for that area, it seems like we only have this really small, very fixed area of the Silestein Highway relative to any plans, the master plan. I don't know if you have any context for that, Rich, or anybody, why we only have that one little section of town center zone.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's distorted a little bit by having the town hall and the library shown as purple instead of red. But I think, probably 40 or 45 years ago, there was a concept of trying to create a town center right here around town hall. And, the concept was to consolidate different governmental entities and all kinds of things here, and to sort of build a downtown other than in old Wethersfield. And that kind of went out the window when we built the police station a mile and a half away, and the Carvels didn't go away, and Lemore's didn't go away. Corner store wasn't going anywhere. So I think it just kind of fizzled and became less of a focus than it had been, and maybe the idea was just to have it be more small-scale, local, convenience-type development rather than things that were geared toward regional travel, like the south end of the Celestine.
I mean, this kind of begs the question, Rich. I mean, should we rethink that whole idea 40 years ago? I mean, this weekend I ran into someone who was telling me that most likely motor vehicles going to vacate in the near future. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what they told me.
Hearing that for 20 years.
Yeah, I know, exactly, but they're pretty adamant it's gonna happen quick. I go, all right, great. And so if that does happen in the next year or two, I mean, that's a beautiful property. Is that a better place for town center? I mean, is this the time for us to kind of rethink, what are we trying to do in this little sliver, as you say? Does it even make sense? Are we gonna be another 40 years? You know, we're saying, what are we doing, you know? So, to me, when I looked at this, the only thing that came to mind is, should we rethink that whole town center idea or not? I mean, and I just throw it out for discussion and see what other people think.
When I started, I'm impressed that you know that, I'm pointing to Rich, that you know that. So the first 2 weeks, I kind of took the time to read as much as I could about the town, and I had been curious. I couldn't figure out, because when I learned that the train didn't arrive till late in the history of Wethersfield, I assumed that the reason it was called Town Center was because that train station had existed forever, and it was a town center because of the train station. And then I read that that's not the case at all, that it was in fact because there were these two very separate communities, Griswoldville because of a mill, and then Old Wethersfield because of the Cove, and that was a very conscious decision to create something in between to bring the town together. And once I learned that, it was like an aha moment, because otherwise it made no sense why this would be the town center. There was no infrastructure that made it the town center. There was no commercial center that made it the town center. It was a conscious decision, I want to say in like the 50s maybe, to just say, we're going to establish a town center to bring both of these sides of the towns together. And it's continued to be the town center. And I do think there is some headway, like the streetscape. If you see, like, and we should continue that too, I think, is you know, there are brick pavers along the entire section, really, from Town Hall north. There's the decorative lighting, there's historical lighting, like it's happening. And I think when we saw 207 Church, that's a good example where that could sort of bring some of that old Wethersfield. They were willing to do the lighting. I mean, who knows where that is? I just see them cutting the grass, so maybe we'll see that happen. I don't know. I don't think we should abandon it yet. But I do think, you know, that's it. Keep in mind that the DMV, that's one of 3 major state properties. I was just kind of showing the new economic development director around today. We drove by the DMV, the Department of Corrections, the Department of Labor. You know, right now, those are all state properties. They're all exempt from zoning, but we should certainly be thinking about what the town would like those to be when they become decommissioned, and we certainly want to be in that discussion.
I mean, if you look at what Rocky Hill did, you know, they put it all together nicely, you know, right off of Main Street there. And you could say that was a well-planned town center idea, you know. And I could see something like that happening in the state property, but I can't see that happening in this little strip. I mean, that's my point.
And it also, it's interesting, because there's some successful businesses there right now that you wouldn't want to displace those, because it's important to keep that non-residential tax base.
Exactly. So I really think that I, for one, would be amenable to rethinking this whole concept of the town center in that little strip, and maybe moving it somewhere else. I know I heard your opinion, that's fine.
Yeah, no, but nothing, this, I mean, I'm glad, this is a conversation where this is active, you know, where this is planning and thinking about the future.
Right.
Nothing that happens with this map or this plan today is going to change any of those ideas. This is a living document. We don't need to make that decision about what this map should show tonight or within 65 days. We can if we want to, but we also don't need to, because this is, it's not binding.
Mm-hmm.
We could also change something. If we do want to suggest something else other than what's shown here, we could, but it's a suggestion, it's policy.
Well, it appears to me that, you know, that this plan is a follow-up, clearly a follow-up to the 2013 plan. And some of the issues or matters that you're kind of focusing in on, like the whole town center concept and so forth, may be more applicable to the 2045 plan. I mean, the Wethersfield is it's always going to be something in progress, a community in progress that that doesn't have clear constant breaks from one epoch to another. And that's one of the things about this community I think that most people appreciate is the issue of continuity.
I think that's a good point, Commissioner Dean, and I think I was just looking, Peter, so those 3 large state facilities are all shown currently as community facilities / institutional. So maybe that doesn't in any way detract from what could be something different in the future. Just in an effort to move things along, because we do have, I want to touch on the affordable housing plan too, because these are going the same track. Do we want to, I think we're done with the presentation.
Yeah, just about. We wanted to just touch on, where we go from here. So we've heard feedback tonight. We'll incorporate the edits, into the draft and send it back out to you. The timeline for approval, at least 65 days before adoption, it has to get shared with the legislative body, so town council in this community, and also to the Capital Region Council of Governments. And their review is advisory. So ideally, we would love, the town council to endorse the plan. We'd love CROG to provide feedback and give us comments. Ideally, early on before that 35 days prior to adoption hits, so that we can, at 35 days, post a hard copy file it in the town clerk's office, post it to the website. This is sort of our pencils down point, so 35 days out from that public hearing. Planning and zoning is the adopting body, so you guys will be the ones adopting the plan. So that, that if we say we sent this on to town council tomorrow, it puts 65 days, and again, that's the shortest that it could be adopted. That puts us to the day after Christmas. So I don't think anybody wants to be doing that. So we were looking at some dates in January, potentially. And then once, ideally, this commission adopts the plan, we have to submit it to the OPM, Office of Policy and Management, no later than 60 days after that. So
This will be a public hearing item in January when we come back. The public will have a chance to weigh in and comment, and
Yes,
then
yep.
when we're ready to close the hearing, we vote just like we would on an application.
exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, and then, it gets noticed in the newspaper before the hearing, just like any other hearing. As I said, a hard copy will be in the town clerk's office. It'll be posted online. So that's kind of that 35 days. That's what I call the pencils down. That's we're not making, any changes. But, between the 65 days where it's with town council, where CROG's taking a look at it, we can continue to make, minor changes. We're, hopefully not making substantial changes
Right.
at that point, but,
Right.
little things, it can be modified.
Dave, did you?
Well, I do want to recognize that we do have one person in attendance in the audience. I just wanted to say if the commission was okay, in case you're interested in talking on this topic or you have comments, you don't have to or don't feel the need to if you don't, but if you'd like to, we're happy to take some comments on this particular agenda item if you'd like to. Thank you.
I have to say Ruth was on our advisory committee. So I'm happy to see her.
Okay, I think,
So are you looking for us
Yeah,
to
so-
weigh in on whether we think it should be move on to the town council at this
correct.
point?
So an item, an action could be a motion to refer the plan to the town council.
And it sounds like we're
Instead of public
pretty
hearing.
confident that any adjustments are more some tweaking of language, footnotes, but not fundamental changes to the goals or anything like that.
Exactly, yes, yep.
So is there a
Actually, can I add?
Yep.
I know I'm not making the motion, but for consideration, also refer to town council and set a public hearing date on adoption for January. It's the commission's pleasure, but the two meetings in January that we just adopted would either be January 2nd, or if we wanted a little bit more time, would be January 21st, which is a Wednesday. So maybe that's a little dicey.
Do we
It's the
need
6th,
to
not the
set the
6th.
public hearing
January
date tonight, or can we do that later?
No,
Well, Go ahead.
but, oh, you go.
I mean, it just has to be not later. It would be good to have it, so that way the 65 days, we're referring it to them. We could wait till our next meeting to
Right.
set the public hearing. but-
Or if we say that we have a tentative date, it could be later. For example, if you're picking the first night in
Right,
January,
right, I
we
just-
could just
correct.
advise that when we get to the notice stage, it might go out another 2
Yes.
weeks or something.
Yes.
Okay. So are people comfortable at least forwarding this document onto the town council to move the process along?
I'll move that.
Moved by Rich, is there a second?
I'll second.
By Pete, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Okay, so, and we are tentatively planning a target public hearing date of January 6th, with the understanding that if needed, that might be shifted slightly later, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Rory, you're welcome to stick around, but I understand if you want to get going.
I might head out, but thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next one, and we can do this pretty quickly, but I want to touch on it because when I started, there was, when I started, these plans had been procured together, the Plan of Conservation and Development update and the Affordable Housing Plan. And they were sort of running on the same tracks, but they weren't done by the same firm. And this has actually been published on the website in draft form since April. And I was also sent out, I don't remember how long on one of the agendas, but we haven't officially discussed it. And we've actually incorporated already some of the recommendations and findings of it in our zoning regulations recently, which this draft does not reflect. I am personally okay with that because then when we update it, then we can say that we have already done a number of the things in the plan. I do have a presentation. It's largely driven by the metrics of the town. It is interesting to look at. But it's a 78-slide presentation. So if it's all right with the commission, I'm going to get to the recommendations of the Affordable Housing Plan. This plan does not require a public hearing. The commission may choose to do a public hearing. You could adopt this plan tonight if you wanted to. But because the two plans have been going on the same track, I would suggest, if the commission is going to do a public hearing and feels the need to, that you set it for the same night as the Plan of Conservation Development, and we run those concurrently. But again, you do not need to. You also do not need to send this to the town council. You can just adopt it if you want. So I'm going to move quickly through these slides. Try not to get, and this will be made available on the website, so anything you see, all of the documents that you see tonight will be, this is already actually on the website. I'm going to update the PowerPoint presentation that Rory just showed on the website, so they're available in the meantime. There is some very interesting information in here. Key findings. Employment in Wethersfield is growing. Most workers in Wethersfield's top 10 largest occupations cannot afford the medium-priced housing units in Wethersfield. Wethersfield saw a decrease in overall commuters, likely due to flexible hybrid and remote work. Due to Wethersfield's close proximity to Hartford, the majority of Wethersfield residents work outside of town. Although there is a large commuting pattern that heads south, so. slide. Top 5, government, healthcare. Service, other services.
Twenty-first century.
On the right side, you sort of see the groupings of income based on sector. If anyone sees anything they absolutely want to stop and look at closer, I will. Plus, it's a lot to look at quickly. Findings, housing sector. Majority of housing stock is comprised of single-family units, which have been increasing over the last decade. The majority of renters in Wethersfield live in households consisting of 3 to 4 people. The predominant age group among homeowners in Wethersfield is 65 years and older, meaning more homeowners may be living on a fixed income and may be looking for other housing options outside of a single-family home. Wethersfield housing market saw a 64% increase in median sale price over the past decade, reaching $338,000 in 2024. The distribution of gross rent is shifting to higher rents, with a median gross rent of $1,244 in 2022. About 52% of renter households in Wethersfield are cost burdened, compared to only 23% of owner households. I think we all know this, but that fourth bullet, the Wethersfield housing market saw a 64% increase in median sale price. That seems to be related, and I'm sure most of you see this too, but you know, those people that are on fixed incomes, the 65 years and older, what the data shows is that they don't have a place to go where they can afford the equivalent cost of living, and those are the same size homes that new families would be moving into. So we have this push and pull where there's a demand for the same house, and so we always talk about affordable housing for workforce housing, but there does seem to be a need for transitional housing. Aging in place is another one of the policy goals of the town, but that does seem to be a growing need, especially as the baby boomers are sort of, I guess, coming to the end of the baby boomers pyramid. I'm not quite sure where, right? The last of the baby boomers.
Got a lot of baby boomers on here, we better be careful.
No, that's right. Yeah, I know. But yeah. Well, I keep hearing that this is like the end of the baby boomer generation are retiring now. Is that right?
All right.
So I'm gonna keep going, so I don't have to talk about
ready to expire.
what.
The other end.
It's expired, the other end's retired.
Spanish-American veterans.
I do find the definition of cost burden is being defined just generally as being when housing costs 30% or more of your income. Interesting, because I can't remember a time in my entire life where I have not been cost burdened then. But maybe I've just been always cost burdened. All right, so I'm going to get to the findings.
Yeah.
I was looking at this today. The upper chart I thought was interesting for home ownership. You know, if you count up the percentages of the house of the owners and their income in percentage, if you look at so starting from income, then there's the number sign and then the percentage sign. So if you look down at the average, 120% of the AMI represents 48% of all of the owned households, followed by 120% of the AMI, 10% down to 100%. It does show, I don't know why those numbers kind of struck me, that's, what is that? So 50, 60, 70, 70% of the town is doing pretty well at earning 100% of the area median income and owning houses. Seems like a large number of stable home owners in town. I don't know why.
Is that consistent with the earlier slide that said the majority of people involved in the top 10 occupations cannot afford the median
When I saw that,
price of housing, which we saw a few slides ago.
it seems, so if you look in Wethersfield, about 55% of the renter households and 16% of the owner households earn less than 50% of the area median income. So I think that's the distinction. Renters, if you're renting, then, right. And I don't think the prior one made that distinction.
I think that's
know-
right. Yeah, I think it was a general statement.
I'm going to get to, so these are the recommendations. These are the themes from the public engagement: maximizing land use for housing opportunities, expanding housing diversity for all ages and incomes, encouraging transit-oriented development, walkable and mixed-use development, preserve and maintain both deed-restricted and naturally occurring affordable housing, investing in resilient and modern infrastructure to preserve existing housing, supporting aging in place and senior housing needs, identify opportunities for regional collaboration and housing partnerships. So that's what they heard from the public engagement, feedback, and these are the goals of the plan. First one, improve existing land use to support and encourage housing growth. Wethersfield faces limited development opportunities due to its built-out nature, but strategic use of underutilized state-owned properties, rezoning, and infill development can create new housing opportunities. Redeveloping sites such as the DMV property and other state-owned parcels could expand mixed use and residential options. I think that statement's true of all the state-owned properties, not just the DMV, but that is an example. Goal number 2, expand housing diversity for all ages and incomes to meet the needs of a changing population. Wethersfield must expand options such as 55-plus housing, 2-family homes and accessory dwelling units, and smaller 1- and 2-bedroom units, encouraging intergenerational housing to support seniors, young professionals, and families by supporting a wider array of housing typologies in town. The reason I'm focusing on these is because this is the overall recommendations. This is the plan. So goal number 3, encourage transit-oriented development, walkable and mixed-use development. New housing should align with smart growth principles by promoting higher density, mixed-use development near transit and amenities, which I think our regulations do. This includes integrating first-floor retail and pedestrian-friendly housing and walkable areas to enhance neighborhood vibrancy and support local businesses. Goal number 4, preserve and maintain both deed-restricted and naturally occurring affordable housing. High costs of living and increasing housing costs create barriers to affordability. Wethersfield should continue to support and preserve its existing deed-restricted affordable housing and to encourage more affordable, smaller, modern starter homes and pursue policies such as expanding rental opportunities and workforce housing can help retain young residents and attract new families. I think that recent regulation to require 10% in multifamily housings is a huge step in that direction. Goal number 5, support aging in place and senior housing needs. As the senior population grows, Wethersfield must enhance housing options and services to support aging in place. This includes increasing senior-friendly housing, expanding social services, and improving accessibility features within homes and neighborhoods. I was going to make a joke there about baby boomers, but I couldn't come up with a clever one right there, but that's why I paused there in the middle. Goal number 6, explore regional collaboration and other housing partnerships. Given shared housing challenges, Wethersfield should participate in regional housing initiatives and identify public and private partnerships in the housing space. Working with the housing authority, developers, and state agencies can help secure funding and maximize housing opportunities within the community. So those are the takeaways of the plan, and then within those goals, some action, more specific strategies are included under each, which is really the same words, only in
Can I ask
yes.
a couple of questions? One is, why not take credit in this for the fact that we just implemented the inclusionary zoning of 10%? Because I think that was, as you said, a major change, and we'd be reporting 5 years from now something that had happened before. So I guess I'm thinking, why not tout that we've done that? And then I'm looking up there where it says zoning changes to encourage density, and I'm just questioning whether we already have zoning in place, such as the SRD, that allows that. And I don't know that we've talked about the need for other density changes sitting here today.
Both worthy topics. My only thought of how to include that is just this is was already prepared and done, so we could recognize those in sort of the executive summary perhaps, and say, over the course of this plan, including the findings, the commission proactively.
Maybe you could say the commission implemented the inclusionary zoning requiring 10% in developments of more than 10, and maybe note has an existing SRD overlay zone, which allows higher density
We did expand it within this time frame too.
residential, right?
We zoned
We
two.
one, yeah.
1, 2.
Gordon Lane one, for sure.
Oh, that's right, and the housing authority actually they didn't come, but we did do an 8-24 to allow them to expand an SRD. Yeah, I can do that. I was struggling with how to, on the one hand, we have action strategies of steps to take, and then in the same document, we say, well, we've already done them. So I want to figure out the right way to capture those, maybe in the executive summary or something like that.
That's good.
Could even slightly color those blocks and say, we've already made significant progress in these areas.
Good idea, and with an
At the
asterisk.
bottom, yeah. But make them a different color than the other white ones, make them stand out more.
Good thought.
Design thought, sorry.
Yeah, no, let me, yeah.
Can you remind us what zoning districts are eligible for the SRD?
I believe
Is it
it's,
commercial or residential?
I don't think it's, I don't know, let me look. Too broad. I think it's any parcel that meets the,
What are we talking?
what.
But underlying
SR
zoning districts are eligible for the SRD to come down and allow a higher density.
A special residential development district may only be established following approval of a zone change that will include the submission of a master plan. Provide for the residential zone district permanent variety of housing.
Doesn't seem to
I
limit
think you
it.
could do it in anyone.
Yeah, anyone. So in your executive summary, just tout that allows currently higher density through the SRD in any zone, if that's the case. Wanted to make sure it wasn't limited to
Yeah.
just a couple.
Because I think it's more of a zone change than an overlay.
Right.
I thought I saw somewhere it was 2 acres, but that's the only criteria in my mind I remember as being the threshold requirement.
Okay.
But I'm not seeing that at the moment. Yeah, I can make those changes. So include, I'm going to suggest in the executive summary that we've already made some changes to
Density.
the density
And
as well as
affordability.
affordability, and then also recognize the SRD zone, and then also graphically represent that in this infographic. I think that's the right term. There's same policies really now in a table form. So we have narrative, infographic, and table, however you want to consume it the best. Then it's really the same. So there's zoning map.
Go through that. Maybe you can pick up some more points to be made in the executive summary of what we've already done.
Yeah, we should build something like that.
Where are these from?
Yale?
I don't know, but I'm glad it's not overlaid onto a real parcel in town, because that would create problems.
Norwich State Hospital in Fairfield Hills.
Okay.
This is what we're going for, huh?
It's about reusing,
Oh, the state-owned properties?
yes.
Those are better pictures than the Department of Labor.
I say the Department of Labor and DMV will be like Shangri-La.
Yeah. Don't forget that other crazy parcel that we have off the turnpike there. The other state hospital that was over there. Like part Newington, part.
That's
us.
haunted, you don't want to do anything.
Oh,
with it.
the old regional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make, these are all sort of examples of the recommendations that I went through. And so
And by the way, do we already have in our regs, I think, a 55 and over ability
We do have an age
or
restricted.
age restricted? So
We
you
do.
mention that too, maybe.
Dave, are there any particular things that are like the biggest lever towards affordable housing options? I mean, I just kind of thinking about it.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
What are the biggest levers? I mean, I'm assuming it's things like when the apartments that we reviewed coming up on Jordan Lane, that's an example of something that's high impact. I'm thinking the Silas Dean over time as housing opportunities might present themselves there. Like I think at the other things, like I think like the narrow houses and things like that, those seem harder to do and longer to take root. I mean, are there some that are like big levers that we should pay more attention to?
I still think that the inclusionary housing is one of the most powerful things that I have seen recently, or some sort of a transfer of development rights would be interesting in Wethersfield, because I do think that there are clear areas in the community where you would like to see higher density development of a certain kind, and it makes sense for transit access, for infrastructure that exists, for a street network that can support a higher volume of traffic. And when the opportunity presents itself to have those tools available to you, I think would really be nice to have. And I know, and I think the commission did, we got pretty, it was a big lift to get the 10% requirement for multifamily, and the inclusionary housing is very complicated. But I don't think it's something that we should, that's what I think of levers. But there are people on the commission who know about a lot of other options. But I think having some sort of a transfer of development rights, or a land bank, or housing preservation. Wethersfield, some of the communities that I've been familiar with have very old housing stock where they're starting to see where those houses really need to be torn down and demolished and rehabilitated. I don't see that so much in Wethersfield on a large scale, which is what a housing preservation trust fund would do. But I do think some sort of a transfer of development rights or inclusionary zoning, which would allow you to, at your own decision, at your own discretion, allow a higher density in certain locations, and or get credit for those to offset somewhere else, would be an interesting land use strategy. But they would be very complex. I think it would take I think Glastonbury's been going through that. I don't know who else has inclusionary, but it's a big lift. You'd probably need to designate a small group of commissioners to kind of work through what that would look like.
I think we talked about this a lot when we amended the reg, correct? And to me, the 10% is huge, because otherwise developers are just not going to choose to have any affordable housing units potentially. And I think that the required mandatory 10% coupled with the SRD vehicle that allows the zone change into a substantially higher density than you could otherwise do, you could say we have some pretty powerful tools in place right now with that amendment. And I think we talked last time about wanting to see how that works for a while before, I think at the time it was before we started to get into more complex things, see how this works. Do we get some projects with people with the 10%, et cetera? So not that we can't do the other, but I think we took a big step and have,
I agree.
It's going to take a while, right?
That's a big, that's a feather in everyone's cap. Some towns struggle with that for a long time, I think. Yeah, I absolutely agree. That's good. The other part of the inclusionary zoning that I like, which is very complex, is the fee in lieu of, where we could take a fee in lieu of constructing the affordable units and put that money into like a housing trust fund, and then we could use it to offset new construction of housing authority properties or new units or rehab units. All very complicated things, but
Right, and we also worry that if you go, higher than 10 and make it too stringent, then you're going to potentially discourage anybody from going forward with a project. So there's a lot of balances there, it seems.
yeah, no, I have no idea what.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that we could do that or make it work. Those are the levers that I'm aware of that I think could have big impacts. None of them are easy.
One of the things that I was just looking at the like general business zone along the Celestine and how we kind of, we have such precious little commercial space available for potential growth. You know, you think about like the higher ceiling potentially on property tax revenue or something in those zones. But when I look at specifically on the zoning map, you have the sort of regional commerce zone ends partway up the Celestine, and then the north, that whole pink section along the Celestine, it overlaps with the town center zone. And thinking about that and what can we do to encourage, sort of what percentage of those properties are vacant? And I don't mean just the number of properties, what square footage wise, what's occupied, knowing that would be not necessarily for this, but thinking about how can we encourage a more mixed use. And does the special residential zone apply there as well? Is it anywhere in town? I was trying to look at that really quickly and see, but you know, would we be able to encourage more mixed-use development where they don't actually lose the actual retail square footage or potential business use square footage, but are able to leverage the vacant, maybe upper floors that aren't being used as much for office space like they would have used, you know, been previously, or if they're building new on some of those spots, especially the northern parts of the Celestine, you know, that how do we encourage that as one of the kind of few remaining spaces where we can encourage more density of housing that would also help with sort of without really losing the business use of the property.
But I notably Wethersfield's mixed, so the SRD would be one parcel, all residential under the zone designation of an SRD. However, the mixed use development does allow for both vertical mixed use, so you could have residential or non-residential retail commercial on the first floor, residential up, but it also allows for you could, for those large commercial properties, the way it's written, it just has to be on the same property. So you can have a commercial use on one of the pad sites and you could have a residential development on another. So all of those parcels, assuming they could, you know, the development site, the envelope, building envelope works. Probably not SRD, but mixed use, yes.
Yeah, that's always been a challenging area, just because by and large, the Celestine properties are one lot deep on both sides, and they're all under separate ownership. There was one point where somebody was looking to combine, I think like 4 or 5 of them, and do something a little more creative, and it just fell through because of too many moving parts and not enough money. You know, you have the big ones like the ShopRite Plaza where, you know, you probably have some real opportunity to do something, but, you know, almost everything else has people living in the backyard.
Yeah, that's, that corridor right against the rail yard is an interesting area because it, you know, it's historically legacy, light industrial, heavy industrial, not so much, but manufacturing corridor, and the parcels are not made, hard to accommodate parking in a building large enough on those small parcels, other than some of the big ones we know about. But
Yeah, and you have the power lines and the brooks and the railroad right behind it.
yeah, it's a flood zone.
Can I ask a basic question from my knowledge? Going back to the early slides where you had those great statistics about affordability of homes and compared to, you know, what people's incomes and things were. How does for example, the recent big jump in taxes that people had to pay since you probably got those numbers, has that changed anything, like the tax increase that went through over the summer? You know, is that going to make it even worse?
Hey, did you say go back? Was there a slide?
You got a slide, it was the slide at the very beginning where you talked about the percentage of different income levels and what they could afford, et cetera. If we
Right here in the
tacked on
bottom right
additional.
corner. That's part of it, I think.
Yeah, there was a series of slides where you talked about, there were some red boxes, dash line boxes around them, and you talked about the affordability.
Oh, yeah, I think that was,
It was the one you were just
Right at the
at.
beginning,
yeah, I think it was this.
Yeah, in this area. That's it.
Casey, I'm sorry about your seating down there.
No, that's okay. But when you're talking about, like the extremely low income, and we're talking about the ability for them to have housing in Wethersfield, do we make it worse with big tax jumps that maybe we could come, some of that preservation housing or some of that might help? I know that aren't there seniors can get some tax relief? We're going to be shooting ourselves in the foot if we start giving everybody tax relief, but since you did those graphs, and that was probably, over the winter when those charts were put together, if you put this out in April, there was a big tax increase. Has that changed the affordability to make it even worse?
It looks like these numbers are coming from 2022 US Census data,
Okay.
so they're already 3 years old, probably,
okay,
right?
Gotcha. But they were recent. Thank you.
Yeah, so a couple things that are, that's an interesting point, Tracy, and I think, yes, the census data. So like the most recent one that would have come out, this is the one that's currently available is 2023. So like this is definitely a couple years older, but also this top chart, like you're mentioning about the taxes. So we're talking about current home owners. What's interesting about this chart that's a little bit misleading is that you have income levels for homeowners on the left with the price to purchase a house now. So it's not, and it's the affordable, that's the income you would need to purchase a house now, not necessarily if you're already a homeowner and potentially, let's say, you're in that 50% AMI range, you're probably you're probably a lower income household on Social Security. So in that price range, if you're already a homeowner. So in that case, you're actually starting to compare, most likely if you're that age in Wethersfield, your house is paid off, your monthly cost is actually just taxes, so and some insurance and things like that. So affordability looks very different, and that income level if you're already a homeowner. So I think it's a little bit misleading to think about what the income of current homeowners is relative to the price to purchase a home now. So that part's definitely a little bit confusing looking at this, because that's not exactly showing their current cost now. That's saying if somebody with that income wanted to buy a house now.
Yeah, and so that's
So,
what I was thinking, because
yeah.
if your income is 54,000, you're not going to get, when you go to get a mortgage, they're going to be also looking at what you're paying for taxes.
Right.
So by increasing our taxes in big lumps, are we then also making it harder to get some of the people in town, even into the smaller units?
Yes,
Yes,
because
yeah.
I think to Chris's point, so real life example on somebody who's already here, they're not buying, so you're not looking for the mortgage rate. Your property taxes and insurance essentially become your rent. So if I think about my house, my monthly is $750 for insurance and taxes, my little escrow that I keep. Right there's $731 under the rent, right? So that's basically saying someone in that first income layer would not be able to afford my insurance and property tax.
Which is, so, and that's where it's also, it's also a bit of a replacement cost. I think you're saying also, if that person is trying to effectively downsize, would they even be able to?
No,
With
I
the
was
cost,
actually,
or-
I was actually thinking of like the younger people who are newer in their
Oh, yeah.
careers and have a lower salary, wouldn't even be able to afford some of what we've listed as like a single family house, because it's now, okay, so this is a few years old already, but so say, it went up 10% for taxes over the same period, it makes it even much further away for them.
Yeah, I mean, there's almost no one that's underwriting a loan for a homeowner that's at 50% AMI.
There aren't
Pretty
a
much,
lot
yeah.
of $78,000 houses for sale.
Yeah, that's true too.
So, yeah.
Since someone's buying them.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason the prices are there because someone's buying them. So
Right.
they can afford them.
Which is why the taxes are higher.
No, I'm with you, but that's what it is. I don't know if that's our problem. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're never going to find, I don't think anyone's going to find a magic recipe for home ownership that's affordable to a very low income individual.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that
Unfortunately.
it's the planning and zoning's problem, I'm just saying that that maybe we're, does the chart need to be updated?
Well, I do think it's part of our, we're not supposed to consider it when we look at applications, but the planning commission does look at, it's not just zoning, it's community development in my mind. Like, we're looking at the entire, it should be part of the consideration, not on an individual site plan or application, but there's no reason the Planning and Zoning Commission can't consider an overall strategy that we need to preserve a non-residential economic base to offset residential taxes. It's just we're not supposed to apply that on an individual, application for good reason. But I think, you make a good point, is taxes are absolutely a part of the factor, right? So I remember, we were looking at a property in West Hartford or a property in Middlebury or a property in Woodbury, and you look at the taxes in West Hartford, the same house costs twice as much a month because of the taxes. So yeah, it's certainly a factor on how much we can afford monthly. But what I found interesting, and again, I was looking at the recent reval. You guys probably all know this because you're paying the taxes on it, right? But the biggest increase in the value were on the smaller homes for like 150 to 400,000, 350,000, because they are demanding the most market, they're the highest in demand, which is great if you own the property because your house appreciated, but that's also the entry-level home ownership. So, it's sort of a good thing if you own one of those homes because they're high in demand, but you also can't go anywhere because chances are you are looking for the house in the same price range.
And it's worsened by the fact that the offices and shopping centers went down
By like
in
30%.
value, right? So it's sort of a double effect.
Can I ask a general question also? I mean, this is a good document, it's very interesting, but what do we do with it? Again, I was thinking, like this guy from Berlin Turnpike's coming in, something, right? He'd do it, the development of Berlin Turnpike.
Oh, the subdivision,
Yeah,
the commercial
we don't know anything about it.
It's a commercial subdivision.
My point is, do we pull this document, go through and check off and see if he's doing all this stuff? I guess I'm trying to say, this is a great document, but what do we really do with it? When we can't tell him what to do, other than push him on the 10% or if he's doing a housing or commercial thing.
Dave, isn't this document simply an obligation by statute that we have to report to the state, but it's not binding, it doesn't affect our decision making,
Again,
et cetera, right?
I'm gonna go farther than,
Yep.
not this, it's a good document, it's just a waste of time.
We have to do it.
It's fantastic to look at it, but the reality is, when a developer comes in, we're not pulling that out, unless, we kinda just,
Yeah, go ahead.
The authors of this update this, because if you look at the bottom, this is based on the 2022.
No,
five-year
that's.
plan.
They've already been paid.
They've been done. They're 100% paid. That's why it's.
We used the
They've been done.
2024.
Yeah, really.
Well, so
They
the-
packed
the-
up their tools and left.
The ACS data is a community, they do a survey of about 38,000 people a year in Connecticut. And then it takes them a couple years to do a sample, and then it's always 2 to 3 years behind when you look at that specific data set.
The
So,
government's shut down anyway.
yeah.
okay, what do we do with it?
So it's, I don't want to inject my, it's a requirement, it's a mandate. The state legislators, some state legislators wanted to address the stated housing crisis, so they required towns to do an affordable housing plan, and so we did an affordable housing plan so that when we apply for state discretionary money, we don't have a black. Listen, there's a need for housing, right? The good news is that there's a lot of data here. So whether you want affordable housing, you don't want it, it's great data, right? What do we do with it? I don't know, Dave, but it's good, and it's going to help us inform decisions going forward.
Again, I'm just
But the
thinking about the guy on Berlin Turnpike, he comes in a couple weeks from now, do we pull this out and say, hey, you got
I think you should. I think you should pull this out and
and hand it to him?
yeah.
All right.
But we will
Looking at
have
the
done
cars in
what
the parking lot.
we were statutorily required to do. We were told to do this, so we did it,
And
and
you
town's
did a
done
good
it.
job, it's really interesting.
Well, I didn't do it. It was largely done when I got here, but RKG did, and
You shouldn't have said that.
bad, I
You
didn't
shouldn't
know
have-
well, I don't want to take. I don't know what else.
On the bottom.
No. Thank you, though.
In the end, it's going to be the developer that decides if they can afford it or not.
Right.
For example, the developer that came to us and is redeveloping the property on Jordan Lane, we asked him, would you be so kind as to give us 10%? He says, I can't. This is before we even had anything on the books. He says, if you guys ask me to do that and force me to do that, I'll walk away. So in the end, I mean, we have very little control.
But sometimes, when we see data like this, it may be in the town's best interest to let them walk away. I'm not saying that was the case, and I'm just saying that this information is helpful to know, you know,
Other than the fact it's his property. Can't have it to do with circumstances, his property.
right, within whatever we allow, he can do.
Within
Right.
some, yeah.
Agreed.
Do you have the direction you need to do the,
Oh, I thought you were talking about Dave, for the guy in the Berlin Turnpike?
do you have the direction you need to do the cover memo and advance this to the state to check it off the list of things?
I do, if the town, are we adopting the plan with those revisions to the executive summary?
Or we're supposed to take action
Yes.
on the plan?
It doesn't, you could do it now as yourselves, or you could do it later with the Plan of Conservation Development public hearing, but you don't have to. You could just adopt it tonight if you want.
Or we could
We can
wait to
include
see
it
your
in.
cover memo and still do it without a public hearing, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, well, I mean, I will make those changes. I heard we're going to recognize in some fashion, probably an executive summary, the things we've already achieved and done. We're going to,
Did you have that on the website right now? You can go
Yes.
look at it?
well, not with these changes, but yeah,
Will I be able to find it?
probably not. Okay.
Yeah, I never knew where it was.
Yeah, it's on the planning and zoning webpage, like the new one. There's a link. There's a link to it. I didn't know it was there either.
Maybe give us.
You mean Tom
let us
Harley's not the
look at
chairman
it.
anymore?
Not the
I don't know, is he still on there?
Does it make any difference?
Was.
I don't know.
It's really the commission's pleasure. I have limited ability to change it. I can certainly change the executive summary. I'll make the changes well, that's why
Yeah, I know.
somehow that's why I always do that. but-
Right. You know, it's listed here for discussion. It doesn't say action. Should we have it on an agenda that says discussion and action before
Yeah, I mean,
we vote
and
on it?
maybe we can look at it.
Yep, one more time? Yeah.
Or
one
once.
time, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
On that, though, a good point of clarification, I want to make sure, because Lynn and I were, I inherited a lot of the things that we do as a commission. I just want to make sure. I've always been trained to say, whenever we have something to say discussion and possible action. It doesn't mean that we need to take action. I was talking to Lynn, and she says historically we haven't done that because it's implied when we have an item under new business or old business. Does the commission have an opinion on it? I think we should, if there's a possibility we may take some action of any sort, that we should say discussion and possible action.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm gonna,
I think the FOI would like that better.
I don't see the downside, so it's more.
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to distribute a link to the document. I'm going to update an executive summary and make those changes. I will send it out, and then I will include a cover memo or a letter of some sort, maybe for your signature or something, to the commission, and then next agenda, you think? Okay.
Yes.
But that's November
Yeah.
5th, maybe to be determined.
Okay.
One question I have about this one and the POCD is, was there anything that changed in the law this year that we needed to put into it or think about? And prospectively, is there anything that we are confident is going to be changed when a housing bill is passed that we kind of proactively think about?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer. I generally wait for the Connecticut Bar Association to give me a sort of a policy guidance of what changed. I know, and I wasn't aware of this, there was a change to commercial properties as of right, something that made, I can look into that. I'm just not sure where I'm going to go for the authoritative source yet, but I can find out. Good question. Just so I understand, even if it's not required, can we make changes now to position ourselves to be more compliant? Or
Yeah,
both?
I mean, if there's something that we're confident is going to be changed, rather than having to
Do it all again, amend it?
do it all again before next December.
Okay, I will look at that as well.
Sorry, that was for the POCD or for
That was
the?
both.
And for this one. I think one of the things that may be changed that we can't do anything about is coordinating our plans with the regional plan and making sure that things are done consistently. that's going to be one of the changes going forward.
I'm aware of some possible legislation that might let us have a regional housing, or let the regional council of governments prepare the plan, but, great, but, I'll look into that.
But does that impact forwarding it on to the council?
No, because I think frankly, at this point, we're already 2 years behind on both of these. And
Right,
we need to wait forever.
okay. All right. So, next item, minutes of October 7th meeting. Would someone like to make a motion?
A motion to accept the October 7, 2025 minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Rich, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain?
I abstain. I was not
Tracy, okay. All right, and I think, all right, with Tracy abstaining, then Joe is voting on that one to give us 9, okay. Public comments on general matters of planning and zoning, no one in the audience. Correspondence, I don't think we have any. Staff reports.
Don't have anything to report.
And in terms of applications to be heard at future meetings, so right now, that Berlin Turnpike gas station sign that I think we started on September 16th was the opening of the hearing. Is that firm to be continued on 11/5, or are we not 100% sure if they're going to be ready?
I have not heard from him since just before the last meeting. I know that they were expecting a new baby any day right around then, but I can follow up if it.
And if he doesn't want to do it on the 5th, I think you may need an extension on the, actually, are we already needing an
well,
extension?
No, not yet.
Because we only have 35 days to
Yeah, we have
complete
65 days that we can start.
35 to complete the hearing. though,
35
that's-
for the hearing.
Yeah, and that's in
Already passed
midstream. We opened it on September 16th, so we should have, actually, we should have gotten an extension to go beyond October 20, probably too much beyond tonight. I think we need an extension even to get to November 5th. Because once the hearing is opened, you only have 35 days to complete it, but the applicant can extend that up to I think, a total of 130 days of extension,
No,
Well, 60,
65.
yeah.
or 65.
But yeah, so I'm happy to
I think you got to,
go. But normally, though, I have historically let that first 65 run into the, if you open the public hearing and it's your first 35, you have the 60.
you have.
Procedurally
you got-
incorrect, but that
No,
first,
once you open it, you're.
You have 35 to close it, and then 65 to vote after you
Yeah.
close it.
can I just, another good reason to consider receiving applications once before opening the public hearing.
Yeah,
in the future.
sure.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, I can.
Can you just ask?
Yes.
Basically, just say you do.
Yes.
Yeah, but maybe do the math just to see. Yeah, I guess by November 5th, we will be out of time.
Yes.
And I realize on a special permit, there's no automatic approval, even if we go over the time, but I just think it would be good to get an email from him that says he consents to extension, of the time to to keep the public hearing open either to November 5th or to the November 18th, whichever date he's coming back for. And then the next one is the Mill Woods. Dave is working on that and has a expert being engaged, but I think realistically that is not going to be ready for November 5th, correct? It's really just a question of whether it's ready for November 18th at this
Correct.
point. Okay. So we may have the sign continuance, and then the 1,000 Silestine Highway, that'll be special permit with the opening of the hearing. Is that going to be ready to open on November 5th?
Ready to open, yes, but we will still be, I suspect we'll still have comments coming, because the comments are going to come from the health district. Comments might be extensive, so.
So the expectation is we could start it, but probably not act on it that night.
Right, and I
Okay.
think that's probably good, just to start the public hearing and
Yep.
get, hear from the applicant what they're proposing, and then identify some of the questions questions and concerns the commission might have in terms of what they want. Keep in mind that as a special permit, the commission can request additional reports from experts if they think it is required. For example, a structural engineering report, sound study.
Okay, and that I know took a lot of time on the text amendment, and it's a more complicated application that we need to definitely give time to, that it requires. All right, and then I guess, Dave, just fit in when it looks like we have capacity on one of these agendas, maybe bring back this document for the final pass and possible action, the affordable plan. Okay? Anything else that you need?
No?
All right. I hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Peter?
Second.
Second, Rich. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are adjourned.
Hey, the guy on the side still. Plans down.
Easy.
Sit there all the time.
Yes,
I mean, it's-
slowly.